Oh, okay. Before the break, we started setting up space uh replica of a Space Invaders game, and this is something you're going to want to do. It's a great way to get introduced to a new engine. Just sit down and make a classic game, uh, like classic game back in the arcade days, before home consoles were even a thing. Because those games are going to be quick and easy to put together, and will familiarize you with a lot of the tools in the engine. I guess next thing is we need our ships to all move together. So they're going to move left and right at some speed, probably based off a timer, right? So maybe we'll go left. I don't know. I'm going to guess like a speed of 4 for 2 seconds. And then we'll go right with a speed of 4 for 2 seconds. Repeat that after a few times. I don't know. I'm just guessing the first numbers, and then we'll see what they look like. Then maybe after 5 seconds, um, after 5 seconds, move down. How big was our picture? Probably be the width of our picture. Right? I'll just put big. Picture size, and then increase our speed. I'll put speed plus plus. So we'll increase our after 5 seconds. Oh, it's not going to come out evenly, is it? 8 seconds. That might be good. That'll be a couple passes back and forth. So we'll look at timer events and just go back and forth after so many seconds. Drop down, go back and forth. We'll just drop suddenly for time constraints, but ideally we would probably want to have a slow movement down and then go back into that left and right cycle. But I think it'll be okay for us here, or you'll see the pieces so that after class, if you want to make it a slow movement down, it'll be fairly easy to do. So that's going to be in our object. So our after the sprites, here's our alien object. The physics about the room, I think we'll be able to just kind of code everything in overall. So where I put them in the room, it looks like they'll need to move to the my right as I look at the screen, but I guess that's stage left from that perspective, which that's an important one in game development. You also want to think about the stage directions, stage and audience directions. So there's a big difference in them. So we'll just start that when we create it. So when we create it, I zoom thumbnails out, buttons out of the way. That might work. I want to use the visual. Their language is based off JavaScript, but it's the little graphic things are a lot easier. So I'll use HTML visual, and I'll click don't ask again for this project. And we don't have to hit it every time. So we can mix and match. We can mix and match the drag and drop and scripts and things like that. So when we create it, we create one of those things. I want to start moving, which movement's pretty common. So that's still in the thing. We have some variables. So I want a creation. Let's create a variable called invader speed and set it equal to what I put in the notes, 4. That's a guess for a starting point. Maybe it needs to be faster. Maybe that's too fast. Maybe it's too slow. But once we see it moving, and because our speeds are related to the background, the animations we have going. There's a lot of interplay there. So it's best to actually see it in action to decide what it's going to be. And once we have a speed, we set our direction. We'll start going stage left. And then we'll go stage left at a speed of invader speed. And notice how once we created that variable, it shows up on this little predictive list. So we can just start typing it and hit tab to choose it off that list. Oh, no, not tab. We're trying again. It's usually tab, enter. So we hit enter to choose it off the list. And making typos is a human trait. It's good to let machines will never make typos. So usually a great idea to choose from the list. Good habit to run a check every chance you get. So if we run, we see those start moving to the right. That looks like a good speed. It'll make it a little bit tricky to shoot them, but we need them to turn around after so long. And I meant to count that. So it starts in 1,000, 2 1,000. 2 seconds might be too long. So we need to decide when to turn around. And for that, in GameMaker, they have some alarms created. We can just use these alarms. So say alarm 0. Let's use alarm 0. So notice it's an event when we get done, then we'll turn around and go the other direction. So for that, on alarm 0, I will set the direction. When that goes off, go the other direction. So stage right at a speed of invader speed again. So after so much time, we'll turn around and go the other speed. Then we need to set that alarm. So I'm going to come back up to the create event. So alarm 0. We set the alarms like a variable. So when we first create it, if I start looking for variables, notice how we have this alarm. So alarm set, index, and count. That sounds like the function we want, right? On alarm events, if y'all remember, we're looking at a second ago, there was like alarm 0 through 10's already created. We can add more. So all of our alarms have some sort of index in there. 0, 1, 2, 3. It's a big array of alarms. And then count, that sounds like how long is the alarm going to count down for? So that seems like the one we want. So we want to set alarm 0. I think I can just type a 0 here. And then count. Any thoughts on what the count should be? So it looked like, well, I tried to count to 2 and that looked like it passed the screen. So maybe a second and a half, I guess. Just turn around or.
It's the thing you play with, right?
But are we looking at seconds or frames? I guess that would be the question.
I would think seconds.
And I think I went the wrong. We don't want to assign a variable here. We want to call a function. Yeah, leave that one. But we always look it up, right? That's what I was getting into in this one. But yes, seconds seems a very reasonable thing. That's going to be nice and intuitive. But We also have frame counters going on, so frames.
Could you also bury an invisible box in the background?
Yes. Or just put a box with no image, but a collision shape, and then when it hits it, it bounces back and forth.
That way you know for sure exactly where their playing space is.
That would work too. Yeah, I was just doing it this way to I was doing it this way to see alarms somewhere. So a collision one would be nice and easy, and it would work on all sorts of different levels at any speed. But alarms are kind of important, so I want to see them somewhere. Always look at the official documentation first. Sometimes it's going to seem confusing, not make any sense, but use tutorials to learn to read the official documentation because that's the user manual. That's the whole thing. Then you're not learning that one step, you can make sense of it. GameMaker is actually pretty nice. So alarm value returns -1 if the alarm isn't running. That doesn't look very helpful. Doesn't say anything about our visual stuff, does it? Movies. Looks like they're doing it all in code. So probably need something like GameMaker visual. Yeah, I'll add visual, see if that does anything. GML visual, help with alarms. Everybody this is a picture. Here. In the create event, set an alarm for 900 steps. So it is a number of steps. Not seconds. Seconds would be more intuitive. That would
be like frames.
But yes, so steps are the frame of the game. In the alarm event, then do all those changes, and it goes off after that much.
They're apparent that to the extent that they're apparently 30 steps a second, so 30 seconds, I guess.
Whoops. And the speed we have control over.
I guess that's the default though.
I'm gonna open image. Oh, open images do that. There we go.
You might, instead of doing that, try just clicking on it, see if it'll.
It's a link. And yeah, very good link. I was trying to look for which one we use.
Weird.
Set an alarm for 900 steps. So I think we just use the variable. Looking for the picture to point out. I haven't done this since last year. Some picture.
They just take the main link, the one on the top. Okay, when that pops up, it says it's chat.
Oh, that was the first one I clicked on. Well, we saw it. You all know how to look things up. I just wanted to point at that at some point. So in our create event, we need to set a variable. What did I just do? Where'd that go? Oh, yeah. Which would be alarm. I think it's indexed like this. Let's see if this gives an error to 30 frames a second, right? Is that what you said that the default was set at?
That's what they were saying in that one chat room where it said 900 steps.
Okay, so we want 2 seconds, so let's say 60 frames. Let's see what that does. I think that's the syntax I want here. Let's see if it crashes. I don't think that set the alarm. So we need to use that function, which one of these icons is used for that? So under common, maybe something useful. Oh, there's a picture. It looks like an alarm clock. That might be the one we want. Right, so you might have suspicion, right? You expect something on how it works. Oh, it's already set to alarm 0. And let's try 60. Let's see what that does. And then, oops, not scrolling there. We'll mouse down here outside that little box and scroll over and get oh, wrong spot. I don't want that there. Right. Do that on create. When we create it, we'll set alarm 0 to 60. See what that does. And then when alarm 0 goes off, we go the other direction. So 60 was pretty quick there. So more than 60. Way more than 60. It must be set. Actually, let's put 60 in there and try to count it. Must be 60 frames per second. One dial. Oh, 60 was less than a second. So we could dig through and figure out how many frames per second it's set to, but 60 looked like about a half a second there, didn't it? So I'm guessing it's set at 140 frames per second. So 2 seconds would probably be something like around 200. I'll do that. 222. Let's see how long that goes. Goes across and then back. That'll probably work. We need to turn around again though, right? So when alarm 0 goes off, then maybe let's go in and set alarm 1 for that same number, 22. I'm gonna go with a slightly smaller number, 204. That'll have a nice effect over time, because then we're not coming back to the exact same spots. It'll offset it slightly. Because we're moving 4 pixels at a time, right? Moving 4 pixels at a time. So the first number was not divisible by 4. This number is divisible by 4. So that means they're going to be offset slightly over time. So staying in one place, spamming the fire button is not going to work for us. Does that make sense? Look for little patterns like that along the way. So we'll set alarm 1. And then likewise, just like we did before, we can add an alarm 1 event. When alarm 1 goes off, we will move back in the stage left direction, screen right, or player right, at the speed of what speed do we want? I can't remember what I called it. Invader speed? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the list. So we don't have to remember. That little list is pretty useful. So now I should go back and forth. And eventually, oh, whoops, forgot to reset alarm 0. So when alarm 1 goes off, then we want to set alarm 0 again to the number we had there, 222. So that way it's just back and forth over and over. So as Brady pointed, there's always more than one way to do this. So as Brady pointed out, we could just put some objects up there so that it bounced off of it. But alarms are kind of important, so I wanted to cover alarms. So now it's just going to go back and forth with a slight offset to the left, to the right, to stage left. So if we don't get them all destroyed in time, there's going to come a point where we can't go off the screen and catch that last one. Or eventually it'll go so far past it. And they're going to be in slightly different positions every time. So there's
Well, unless the R2 was different, it looks like it's the timer's gradually running away. It looks like it's going further and further to the right every time.
oh yeah, that's part of the offset. So they end up in a slightly they don't come back to the exact same position, and eventually it's going to Somebody said the aliens aren't moving, so there's a create event. When we create them, we set the alarm, set the speed they're moving it forward, the direction, or we create the variable for the speed, set the direction, and then we move left and right, or move, I'll say right at that speed. That way I don't have to keep thinking about it. Do you get all that, Zach? Was that Zach that asked?
Yeah, yeah. I got it. I copied that all except for the alarm countdown, and it doesn't work.
It's not moving at all.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Is it on the create event?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We might have to go through there in a little while. Because now there's a lot of repetition on there. So dig through, something might have got a little bit off. Is your speed set more than 0?
It's set to 4.
Or and you did click the little arrow for the direction.
Hold on, let me double check something real quick. Just to make sure I didn't miss. There might have been a minor error on my part just now. Oh, okay, this still doesn't work.
You got it.
No, it doesn't work.
I'm not sure. We might have to look here. We'll look here in a few minutes. See if you can find it, because the next step's going to be repetitive, and then there'll be time. I'm thinking in a few minutes there'll be time to address questions. So I'm going to keep going to the next step, if that's okay, Zach, and then we'll answer questions after we move them down after the class session ends. That way we have lots of time. I was expecting to end about 3:15, 3:20, and then we'll have lots of time to address questions. Oh, now we need to move down, right? Space Invaders. So periodically we need to move, fly lower and increase our speed. So I'll set another alarm for that. Back to the create event. When we start this, I'll also set, I guess we're up to alarm 3 or 2. Alarm 2, and if 200 is about 2 seconds, 800, something like that. After so much time, we'll move down, and then when that happens, then add the event for this. So I know Zach mentions there was problems with it not following. His wasn't moving, but does the logic here make sense? So that when we're not under such tight time constraints, does it make sense why we're doing where all these things are coming from? So this is just timer control, just moves back and forth for a while, and then eventually we'll want to move down. And with our movements, well, we want to increase our speed, so we'll assign variable and set invader speed to say 2, and then click the relative box. So we'll go 2 units faster than what we were. So that way every so often we do that over and over and over again. I guess we'll repeat that same counter, right? Alarm 2, is that what it was? Yeah, so we'll reset alarm 2 for 876. I just kind of pick that number, and we can edit if it doesn't seem quite right. Ideally, something you all might want to play around with after the lecture, when there's not as tight of time constraints, move it down for create a timer 4 or alarm 3 or 4 or something that just runs for like 40 frames for how long we want to go down and do that animation. I'm just going to jump down because this is also another useful button here. So under instances, sequences, controls, gamepads here under movement, there's the set direction. That might have been good. There's jump to point somewhere. Jump to point. Jump to the specified position or jump back to the start position. So I'm going to grab the jump to position one because that's a very, very useful one. How much should we go down? Anybody have any thoughts? Oh, I know what might have. We check our sprite size. Our sprite is 64 by 64. So should we jump down that far? 64? Does that sound reasonable? Or
I figured out what was wrong with mine.
oh, what was it?
Accidentally put sprites in the room instead of the actual objects, so they just didn't do anything.
That makes sense. Yes. Awesome. Great job figuring that out. And that is the process right there, right? It's very time consuming. We do what we think is going to work and then fix the bugs. That's software development in one sentence right there. Right? We put together the algorithm we think is going to work and then correct all the stuff we did wrong along the way. So great job figuring that out, Zach. That was pretty quick. I've done that many times myself. So remember,
when I clicked on the objects in the room, I noticed that there was an instance of a sprite and not an instance of an object, which is what caught my attention. So,
and that's the process. You just go through every little piece, one thing at a time, until you figure out what went wrong. So I'm going to jump down, maybe not the whole image. I'll just jump down 60 relative to where we are. Oh wait, that's not down. Actually, that might look good. Jump negative 60, so we're not going straight down. And then 60 is down. I think this goes down. This might go up. I know that X goes positive to the right and negative to the left. But Y usually goes positive down. Like, okay, I've jumped between lots of different systems lately. Kind of hard to remember which particular Y direction they used when they made GameMaker. So we can just put a positive number and see what it jumps to after so many seconds. It's like 4 seconds, right? Or 4 back and forth passes should be somewhere around there. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's down. Could probably go a little bit more to the left, but then it'll eventually go all the way down. And our timers are still running, so still back and forth, down, back and forth, down. And the traditional Space Invaders invasion. And then I'm going to increase that negative 60 to maybe negative 9, maybe 120. I think that'll work okay. And run a check every chance you get. Right? All we did was change it one number there and still testing. Time for another test run to see if that number is going to work. Should be about now. The zoom delayed it a little. On my screen, it went better.
Well, way over.
Back and forth. I think that'll work for now. There's corrections we can make. We could make it smooth movement, but the smooth movement would be almost identical to how we do left and right. So the timer control. That's what we haven't seen that yet this fast. Everything's timer controlled, and eventually it gets down here. So we need to set up a condition. I guess we could go ahead and set up the condition for when the thing ends, because that's going to be based off this. So if we add event, Create, destroy, clean up, step, draw, mouse, key, gesture, collision, other. So if we're outside the room, intersect the boundary, end of animation, that's going to be an important one, right? You get to fancier animations. At the end of the animation, after and user defined events, asynchronous stuff. Oh, we haven't looked at audio. Audio loads in right like your just like your sprites. So the same way we have that import a sprite, import image for a sprite. Import audio is exactly the same. The gestures when we click, collisions, objects. Oh, this might be a good one. So that thing Brady had mentioned, we wanted to cover time and controlled events, but maybe just an invisible object that we can run into. That might be a good one, right? Then we can just do a simple collision there. There's multiple ways. I was going to do a position thing. I'm gonna come back over to the workspace and create a new sprite. In the sprite folder. Make sure I highlight that first. Create a new sprite. And this time, I'm gonna leave the image blank and just set the collision mask to a probably don't even need 64 by 64. That's it. This manual. So notice that there's no image, so the collision mask can't quite figure out what to do. But if I make it just that width, so a 64 pixel wide thing, there's no image associated with it, but there's a boundary there. That'd probably be a good name for it. SBR boundary. Let's scroll down here and create a boundary object. And I've completely lost my organization, haven't I? Because now they're no longer in the same order, but they can also be moved. They can also be collapsed, right? We can collapse them into small, easily movable pieces. I'll make a object boundary and then give it that boundary sprite. So there's nothing to see there, but there's something that exists so that if we put it down here along the bottom, which I should scroll down. So notice that it's kind of, you have to pay close attention to what you're doing. Left alt to paint with selected objects. So notice that little hint there. So if we have that selected, so if we hold alt and then drag, we can paint a whole big row of those. Yep. So now we can't see it, but there is that invisible object down there that the ships can collide with. So we can set up that collision. Back to the invader object. We'll do a collision when we collide with the boundary object. Let's just go to another room that has the words game over written really big. That might work, right? Scroll past them. There's some room buttons here somewhere. Pretty sure I scroll past them. Instances, sequences, some of our controls, gamepad things, movement, collisions, drawing, tiles, data structure covers. I guess it is scroll past it. Files, types, random things, cameras. So that's how we view it and stuff. Here's rooms. So we will go to next room. So we can create another room here. So right click on the folder and create a room that I guess just has a big sprite that says game over. So backgrounds, open the editor. Right. Notice there's also a create a new sprite button right here. So we create a new sprite. Did it create it? Yeah, I think it did. I'll just grab some color and I'll just write it with the pencil. I'm sure there's probably a text tool on there, but the pencil was already pulled up, so I thought this might be quicker. Game. Oh yeah, the big T is probably the text. Oh. And then stretch that to fit our entire background. That'll work for now. Obviously, there's much better things we can do for the end of the game, right? Some sort of fancy animation. We can do some great animations for alien invasion, right? Or this is where we would put the cutscene, right? The aliens hit the ground. We go to the cutscene where the aliens, showing the aliens destroying New York City and Washington D.C. and Paris. Actually, we could probably grab little videos of those and throw them in there. All those standard ones that Hollywood uses. So a bunch of destruction whenever the aliens reach ground, but for our time constraints, I'll just write the words game over. And notice the order. So we start in room 1, then we go to room 2. That sprite's in the wrong spot, so I'll drag it down there. And now our run should see that reach all the way to the bottom. So I guess we just have to wait. Sometimes in debugging, it might want to adjust things for debugging, like cut all your timers in half or double all your speeds or something, so you can get up to the point you actually want to see. That happens a lot in games. We have that starting point, but we might not be debugging the beginning of level 1. So have to adjust to other things. Eventually, I think it's still a couple drops, isn't it? Eventually, we get down here. Just does all that logic make sense? Does everybody kind of see how those pieces go together? Those are the ones we use most often. The transform data, right? Location, rotation, and scale. That's what we do to our graphics. And then collisions and timers are how we mostly interact with what things are going to happen. It's almost down to the bottom, and you can do things like this. So like when debugging it, maybe put an extra spaceship there that's only like 1 or 2 jumps from the bottom to quickly test that part. Y'all can figure out little things or cut all the timers in half so that it all happens twice as quickly, and then it gets to the bottom pretty quick. The next jump, this one. Oh. it was under the cannon. So it looks like now we're down to the row of the level of the cannon. I hope it's not still 2 jumps away. But it should be there eventually. I think it probably should have collided by now. So looks like that collision did not move us to the next room. So let's do that. I'm gonna delete that one. Instead of go to next room, I'm gonna switch to the go to the specific room. And I think I can just choose from this list. Yeah. And go to room 2. There's the collision between the invader and the object, right? Collision with object boundary and the ship. And I'm gonna come back over to room 1, and I'm gonna put another ship down here so that we don't have to wait nearly so long for it to. Okay, so it's right underneath the cannon. So whenever this ship is right under the cannon, we should see that happen. Which will hopefully go a lot quicker. Actually. Right now, as soon as it moves down, it should on the it only has we only have to wait for it to move down once. I seem to miss it again, right? Sometimes, and the invisible collision things make it a little bit hard to debug that. So I'm going to go try to make that visible somehow. Where's that sprite? Oh, so here's this sprite. I'll go in here and draw a big box. That'll probably work. Let's grab a rectangle and fill in a large section of the screen there. I'll switch this back to automatic. It looks like it covers the whole square. So our collision bound should be there. Run that, we should be able to see stuff now and see why that's not interacting. Oh, that worked. Notice how it didn't clear the screen off more. So it's like, what was going wrong the first time? I have no idea. Something went wrong, but we did it with an invisible object, so it was really hard to figure out what was going wrong. But it worked that time. I switched to full image. Or yeah, I just did the full image is what it was. Parts being missed. And now I should be able to come in here and select this. I push Control A and hit delete. So now there's no longer an image for it. And let's see if it works the same way with no image. Now, it was the full box. So it should work correctly now. It moves. Okay, so we do eventually get to the end of the game. And from where that ship is, it kind of looks really nice because it does it at the very first part of that movement, so it doesn't so it looks like the ship landed on at the same level as our cannon. That's kind of a nice effect that I wasn't expecting there, but it worked. The happy little accident things. Red might have been a better color for that, but it's clear where the end of the game is. His next, our cannon needs to move left and right. That's a quick, easy one, right? So, whoops. I want to keep that on there. I come down to the cannon object. We'll have a couple key presses. Key down or key press? Probably key press,
I would
right?
say key down personally.
Down. So that's the one where we have to keep tapping it. So we only get a little bit of movement. That makes sense. I'll do A and D, but you can see it's whichever key you want. Whatever key makes the most sense.
Key down is it only step each time you press it right?
Key down is when it first starts to move. Key press is while you're holding it. And key up is when you release. So key down only happens once. The key press happens over and over and over again. And key up only happens once. So the enter, stay, and exit on our key press event. There's 3 different times we can do it. So doing it once makes sense here because it's a big heavy cannon, so we would only move so much. So whenever we press it, the D key or key down A key, jump to position. It's a big heavy cannon, we'll just jump. 40 pixels over relative. That sound good? Oh, A is negative 40. And then D is positive 40. Make sure you hit the checkbox relative to where it was. So 40 instead of just the X coordinate 40 pixels relative to where it was. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, wait, that's holding the key down. Let's try the other one.
Key down is holding it down.
So, yes.
That's what I had figured from the name. That's why I recommended it.
Yes. It goes back and forth. And key press, which we can just change. If we can just right click and change it to a key press or A. Right click, change event, key press or letter B. Which that would work too. If you want to do that, you probably want to move 40 pixels per frame at that rate if you're going to hold it. But there's lots of options of how we do it. Okay, there we go. That's what I was thinking. We just have to move back and forth, and then we can start hitting our space key. I'll do that really exaggerated so there's our movement. And I can see the challenge in the game because the spaceships are moving a lot faster than the cannon, than the ground defenses. Which also is one of our keywords from the other day, abstraction, right? It's really lousy graphics, and spaceships are completely fictional, but does that seem like a reasonable abstraction? Do the spaceships move faster than the ground defenses? Or position, as far as position goes, obviously the bullet, when we do that, is going to move a lot faster. So let's do again, key press because we only want it to happen once. Press it once, we'll hit the space bar. And yeah, I said that backwards. So we have all three. And the labels are not consistent. So depending on where you're working at, you'll get different labels as far as what's the press and the hold and the release. One of those words is here. For when you first tap it, when you're holding it down, and then when you release, using words that aren't in GameMaker. But you can see it's very, very obvious from the trial and error when we do that. So when we press space, we want a bullet to start to exist, right? So that's the light bulb. I don't know why they picked that like that, but the light bulb looking icon, you can see hover and over it, create instance. So we'll create an instance. And what do we want to create? A missile object. Definitely relative to our cannon. And then we'll choose X and Y that kind of look appropriate. We'll find those in a moment. Put it on that layer, and whenever where's the missile object? Oh, there it is. So up here in the missile object, when it is created, it's just going to move up really fast, right? So upward to the speed of, somebody spit out a number. What's a good speed? First guess, right? We're probably gonna have to. That's gonna be way too fast.
Well, you said a number, so. About 100.
I heard 60 and 100, so I'll split the difference there. 60 and 100 average to 80, right? Let's see what this does. We know the bullet's going to move up really, really fast. That was pretty fast. That's fast enough. I don't see it with the zoom delay. I saw it that time. So with the delay, the zoom on the TVs in the room, at least, I don't even see that every time. So I'm gonna try a smaller number. Let's see what 8 is. Because part of the nature of this game is we want the players to learn how to aim. Right? So we see how far we miss it by. And then in the next time we can see when we need to hit the button in order to get the one we're aiming at. That is one of the trial and error things that might be best tested with some of your friends. Like the speed of the bullet. Everybody's played Space Invaders, right? Or is at least aware of what it is. Part of the thing about the game is we want the player to learn how to aim. So we want the bullet fast enough so we don't shoot as while the ship is above us. We want to shoot before the ship is above us, but time it so that the bullet ends up in the right spot when the ship is above us. That's part of the fun of the game. So you want it slow enough that the player can do that. Not super fast. So a balance thing, that's something that's one of the things you probably want to find some of your friends or family members or somebody to help with, right? Check with people who are really good at playing games and people who aren't really good at playing games, and then find the balance between them, because you want it to be fun for both of them. So it looks like it's working up to that point. I'm thinking one more big step. I was hoping to be finished 3 minutes ago, so we're getting close to the point I wanted. What's left?
Hitting the ship.
So we have a choice. Do we put the collision between the alien collides with missile, or missile collides with alien?
I'd say missile collides with the alien.
Either way, both of them can be made to work. Right? There's more than one way to do it. I was thinking the same thing though. So when missile collides with invader, we want to destroy the invader and probably show some sort of animation. So first thing I'm gonna do is go make a sprite for something that will pass for an explosion to sprite. I'll go up here to the top, select the correct folder, and go up here to the top of the workspace, create a new sprite. And I'm just gonna do a really quick thing. Get that in a good position. I'm gonna hit the edit image button and just go in here and have some pre-built shapes. Right? Or do we? No, we just have squares and this is polygon. A lot of things have star shapes. So you can do something for an explosion like start with a triangle and then do a 5-point star, then a 7-point star. Quickly throw things together. We just need a quick explosion animation. So I'm going to grab something that's
If you use the polygon tool, it's really good.
Pretty good. I was just going to do circles. So our explosion starts small, right? And then in the next frame, or onion layering, this one, our explosion's gotten a little bit bigger. Because we're not to the final draft yet anyway. Then I'm gonna grab the eraser and put some holes in the explosion. Then another one. This frame, slightly bigger. And a 3-frame animation is probably good for now. I'm gonna have the eraser and put some holes in. So not the greatest explosion, but it'll give us the thing we want. Well, maybe one more. But those spaceships probably have lots of fuel on them, right? So might want a big explosion. Final one is almost that whole 64 by 64 grid. Fill that in. Some holes in it. And remember that sky color behind it. So the blue showing through those little spots in orange are going to look like smoke more so than the cloud showing through. 4 frames will work for the animation. I'll close that. I'll set it to a nice slow speed though. Let's do that at 6 frames per second. So that probably works. So I slowed it down quite a bit. So that will play. So we come back down here. When missile collides with the invader, we want to destroy the invader and play that animation. But it might, so that's a place that might be better from the other event. Logically, it makes sense to put it where the missile collides with the invader, right? But the position might be hard to catch there. I guess we could use the missile position. I suddenly was thinking for a moment that if we put it on the alien ship, then we can use the alien position for it. But when that collision happens, we are at our missiles at the same position anyways. I'm not sure why I thought that for a moment, but you all know that. I think you all understand that process, right? Think about different ideas, what's going to happen. So we want to create an instance. Oh, I guess we need that, don't we? We need that an object for that. So I'll zoom out, scroll down here, create a new object, which I guess I can do here. Right click, create an object, and all we really need is that sprite, which probably should have a name. So this is OBJ explosion. Here. Oh, if you all noticed that it does zoom in and out to where your mouse is at. So sometimes the best way to move long distance is zoom all the way out, move your mouse, and then zoom into the position the mouse is at. Skip naming that, probably important. SPR explosion. That way we don't have things called sprite 1, 2, 3, so on. Zoom out so we can find the object we're working with. This one is the yes. Okay. This one. So create an explosion relative to where that collision happened, which I guess makes sense. It'll look like the missile explodes there. Then we want to delete the instances, which is the trash can thing, destroy instance. So we want to do it, destroy the instance. What's it doing now? And notice we can destroy the self, the other, everything, or choose a specific object. So this is on the missile. Is that the end of the missile?
Yes.
So we're going to destroy the self. But then we need another destroy self. So after we destroy the missile,
I'm gonna guess other, which would other be the thing it hit?
Other. Why is it not? I was expecting to see something. So self and other.
There's a very, very, very faded text box directly next to the other instant.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I can tell as far as any way to tell what it's doing. And then the self doesn't have anything.
Okay, yeah. If we click on this, it's still selected.
Yeah.
But it's really those two choices. Those are the two things we're going to destroy. Really, one. I guess at the end of the game, there's going to be a destroy all the instances, but normally it's like this. So we'll destroy both of them.
Well, you might have like chain reactions or something going on, maybe. So you could like other objects that aren't being directly collided.
That makes sense.
You know, if you blow up this door and that off these other things to blow up too.
Yeah, my organization's gotten completely off. This object shouldn't be way up here. Then here, under other, we have an animation in. So we'll go through the animation once, and when we get to the animation, end of the animation, then destroy the cell. That makes sense? So animation end event, we'll just destroy that, and my organization got way off. So I'm going to grab this, move it over, move this sprite down so it's lined up with the other sprites. And I'll grab this. It has to be hot, like the little green bar. So if you're moving it very far, it's really, really hard to grab that little green bar. It's not very big when you're zoomed out far enough to actually see where you're going with it. But eventually, get it down here so things are still nicely organized. Because organization goes a long way. There's different ways we can do it, right? Could go left to right, like sprite, then object, then there's more stuff that can go in there, but that's what we've seen so far. So we hit the space bar, creates a missile. The missile goes up. If it collides with an alien, it creates the explosion instance, then deletes the missile and the thing alien it collided with. And then when the explosion instance finishes, the explosion instance deletes itself instead of repeating that animation in a loop. Does that sound like everything we need for the algorithm there? So they're moving. If I shoot one, it miss, it goes right past them. Worked on that one. We probably don't want to do this though, right? Well, some players might want to do this, but we probably don't want the player to do that because it's not nearly as much fun if we can do that. So we need to somehow prevent that spamming. So there's a couple ways to do it. In our selection structure here, variable of expression, undefined. We could create a variable and just check that variable for when we fire it. I think that's the way I like to do it. I'll show you what I mean. So like we're on the cannon here. So we could check and see if that thing the missile has left the room or anything like that. What I like to do is set up what I normally like to do is like when we create it, make a new variable called loaded. That sounds good. Right. Loaded is set to 1 or true, and then when we push fire, loaded goes to false. And when that bullet is when we're ready to fire again, then we can do that. So set loaded to true, so we can fire. And then when we press space, I guess I can use the tabs, can I? When we press the space bar, we create an instance of that missile. We drag that, scroll till that's back on the screen, and then we'll set the variable loaded to 0, so false. The cannon is not currently loaded. We need time to load it. And lots of different checks. We did a bunch of stuff with timers, so let's do a timer. What all alarms have we used so far? Anybody keep track of how many we used? 0, 1, 2. Did we use anything after that? No, let's just use a random. Okay, alarm 8, 30. Let's see what that does, and then we can adjust that step counter to decide when to do it. And for alarm 8, but notice how we have an alarm 0 here. And that is a different alarm 0 than we had on the alien invader. So we have 12 alarms come into every object. They don't overlap, but the numbers are arbitrary. We don't have to do them in order. When alarm 8 goes off, we'll set the variable loaded back to true. Oh, whoops. Set the variable loaded to true or 1. Then we can shoot again. Which one is it? It's there's that get instance count. So we could just say there's only 3 bullets allowed at a time. Right? If the count of bullets is less than 3, that might be a good reasonable way to do it. One of these has a reference to it. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's at in the menu, but there is a way to refer to another object's variables to change those. But personally, I find it a lot easier just to set a global variable. Set a global variable, and then all the objects can access it. Or control variables, something like that. Let's see what that. That's spread it out a little, but it's still spam pretty good. Wait. Every time we hit space. Oh, we need a selection, don't we? So dragging an if, and all of this I'll put over here on like this side. So if loaded is equal to 1, so that's what I was thinking, true or false, 0 and 1. If loaded is equal to that, then we create an instance of that. Why did this other stuff not come with it? Actually, I wanted all this stuff to happen, so I click it and drag down. Drag it away from the other one, and then it turns purple. So if loaded is 1, we do that stuff. Otherwise, we don't do anything. So selection structures and just syntax here for that. Okay, that's already gone like 20 minutes longer than I thought, but now there's some space. If that space, the space between bullets is the width of all those things, we can still sit there and spam them, but they can fly entirely in between the spamming bullets. And we should have some sort of aiming, which definitely is not going to happen watching the TV over across the room from the Zoom call. And there's the part that makes the game fun because we have to learn to aim at the ships. Oh, that made it tricky. They moved right on me. One more. Oh, it moved. And it's going faster and faster and faster. So the typical thing. Oh, that's nice. I can sit there and spam it, and on the patterns, he's going to miss it every single time. That makes it a nice, challenging game. So they have to, from the spot, mathematically, if I sit here and spam it, the faster I can push the button, it is not going to hit it. So found a spot where they have to aim. They can't just spam the button until the end. I guess we should do a victory thing, but that's the same as the game over scene. Does everybody remember? Mm-hmm. Are y'all are capable of doing that now, right?
I'll have to watch that part back now.
Okay, it's recorded. Oh,
you got it.
I broke my pattern. But there are spots like that. You want to make sure there's a spot like that in your game. Somebody can't just sit there and spam the game, right? Space Invaders is simple. It was an early video game, primitive by a lot of standards, But that has always been part of Space Invaders, that it was predicted against somebody just spamming the button as quick. There's not a speed run in Space Invaders. As they get faster and faster in those offset patterns, you do have to aim. I guess there are certain probabilities that you could find the right spot and stuff, but
don't underestimate
it's
it.
blocked.
There will be people. There's somebody that's got some.
Oh yeah, there's always ways to do it, but kind of like that pattern I set up there, right? I was just as quick as I could spam it. It was never going to hit it. It moved down and then flowed between the next gap between them.
You can't just stand there and hold the barrier stuff up.
Yes.
Never underestimate your players.
Yes.
They will find it.
Finding a pattern like that exactly is a little bit of a tricky math. It's not bad math, but it does take a minute to calculate it. We have talked about that before, right? I am a math person overall. I have some learning computer degrees and experience in IT and many decades of experience working with computers, and then low associate's degree in computers from IT, but all of my higher degrees are in mathematics. So that's how we set up the patterns like that. But does anybody have any questions about that? Do you feel like you can take that further now? More of the same thing, more timers, more collisions. Go to another room that's another level. Like we put 12 aliens in there, put 16 in the next level and make them move faster. And then make it harder and harder for the game. Put them in different patterns and things like that. I assume the silence means no questions. So please give that a try. Like to sit there, see what you can figure out, sort of try. Not like the follow along tutorial homework assignment. Take a couple hours and see what you can do with those pieces we've seen. Those are the big pieces, right? Our transform data, location, rotation, and scale of the pictures. The collision boundaries for the physics. Timer events and collision events, and user events. Those are the big ones that we pull off of, right? Your most advanced games, that's the primary things, controls you have. Those same ones that we use in Space Invaders. But it sounds like nobody spoke up with questions. If you have any, let me know. It's an active subject, and for the long run, what we did here today. When you get exposed to a new engine, the way to learn it is to make something. Think about those classic games from the 70s, because those are going to be those are going to be much quicker to make than trying to remake Assassin's Creed, right? That one will take you a few minutes, hours, then weeks, few months, and if it's just you, probably a few years. So go back to those like the early arcade days, right? Coin operated arcades. Those are great games to introduce yourself to a new engine with, like we did here. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm always happy to help. Otherwise, I will see you all next Monday, and when we get started in the Godot game engine. And as always, it'll be recorded. So if you're traveling across the country, right? Since we have a week-long fall break now, we only take Thanksgiving and the day after all. So if you're traveling across the country, I completely understand. But it's a Monday, Wednesday class, and technically I'll be here Monday and Wednesday. My mom only lives 5 miles from my house. I'm traveling from Clarksville to New Orleans. So I'll be here Monday and Wednesday, but everything's recorded like normal. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Monday, and we'll get started in Godot engine.
Yeah, we are. So I